room. You know what I'm saying? Now, there's some times where you go through things and you have to find ways to express yourself, and music is an outlet for that. Music is the platform provided to artists to be able to put their passions on paper, on a canvas, or whatever it may be. But you can't send mixed messages to people. And, you know, it's like, look, we're either going to be this or we're going to be that, right? Right now. So the first album, we cannot do all of this. If you want to deal with duality, we do that shit third, fourth album and all of that shit. But I'm glad because I had to really stop and be like, okay, who are you going to be, right? Like, they are who they are, and it's good to look up to it and listen to it, but you got to start forming your own identity. And I'm glad that, you know, I had friends close to me that made me realize that in the moment. And again, change is difficult for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? That's just not easy to swallow, especially when you're wrong. Like, that was the whole point about it. I was really just wrong trying to, you know, you can't do both. You just can't exist as both. So that was it, though. Other than that, you know, the beautiful thing about UGK in terms of myself and Pimp and the dynamic between us was that we never argued about music. Like, there was never, I don't like this beat, I don't like this hook or whatever. We found ways to compliment each other all the time. And we never stepped on each other's toes because we ain't dressed the same, obviously, as I just said, right? But we ain't like the same type of women, cars. He was always a jewelry dude. He always was a dressed up dude like that. I was not. Shirts and shorts, t-shirt, shorts and flip-flops. I did literally the first year touring with just white t-shirt, like thick ass, like Nike shorts and flip-flops. Like, I didn't really care about that in that sense. And it took me a while for me to really realize who I was, right? Because it was only a certain way that I saw myself, but I had to be aware of the public perception of who I was and make sense with that.
Well, it's interesting you talk about sort of this development of your brand and really embracing like a singular messaging, because obviously you guys went through several iterations to becoming the Underground Kings.
Yes.
UGK. Can you tell me a little bit about how you guys thought about the various names and permutations of the group? And
right, so when Pimp and I first became rap partners, we were not technically in a group together. We were part of a collective of people. There were certain groups, there were solo artists, dancers, DJs, producers, and so forth. So Pimp was already in a group with another person, Mitchell Queen, and that was actually, they were called the Underground Kings. I was in another group with a person, Jelon Jackson, and we were the PA Militia. At a certain point, we decided to merge both of those groups, and then we became 4BM, which was Four Black Ministers, but menace like MENACE, as opposed to not church ministers, like starting shit menace. Yeah, like menace to society menace type motherfuckers. And we recorded several songs under that moniker, one of which, actually the earliest version of Cocaine in the Back of the Ride was a Four Black Minister song, because the whole idea of it was that we were going to be, Pimp wanted to do all gangster rap music, but over roots reggae. Kind of shit. I don't know how old some of you are. Who was outside in 90, 91? Exactly. Right. But for the six of us that were, you could not go to a club in Houston in 89, 90, 91, 92 without hearing reggae. The biggest club in Houston for many years was Jamaica. It was a reggae club that did like a rap set. So you would be in there and it'd be Shabba Ranks and Cuddy Ranks and all these people for 3 hours, and then 30 minutes of rap and then back to the reggae kind of a thing. So there was all of these other different musical movements and happenings that were influencing us at the time. But by the time we as a collective decided to actually professionally pursue this as a career, life started calling for other people's. Mitchell, who was Chad's partner, got a scholarship to Prairie View. He's like, I'm going to play football for Prairie View, you know? I don't know how many of y'all paid attention to Prairie View football in 91, 92, and 93. They won one game in 2 years.
Maybe
that's not Mitchell's fault. I'm not blaming Mitch for that. My partner, Jelon, was an aspiring football player. He was in his junior year. He sees Mitch get a scholarship. He's like, I need to focus on my football shit and quit this rap shit. And eventually, life happened to everybody. We're talking about a group of maybe 16 people. And then one day we looked up, and the only people that were serious about actually making a record were me, Pimp, and who became our DJ, DJ Bird.
To formalize this relationship with Pimp C, did you guys ever sit down and like figure out how the economics of the partnership were going to work, how the splits were going to work, or any of that kind of sort of nitty-gritty stuff?
No, not at all. Technically, as far as UGK was concerned, there was 50-50, right? But that was also with the understanding that Pimp was going to be making extra money because he's producing most of the music. Finances was never a situation for UGK. I wasn't really a flashy guy at all, so I was just happy making enough money to pay bills, right? And so I just would kind of, fuck off a lot of my money on just weed and partying and car shit, right?
As one does.
Chad worked harder. Chad did more work because Chad wanted more out of life. He always wanted nice things. He wanted a nice quality of life, a comfortable quality of life for himself and his family. And so because of that, but he was a producer. I wasn't necessarily a producer. I made some beats. I would not call myself a producer by any means. But Chad had a sound that was very much in demand. So he would get a lot more production work than, say, we would get verse work or whatever. So, but that became an issue too, because I remember the first time he made a beat for somebody and I wasn't there. And that was Having Thanks for Big Mike. And I was so, I can cuss, right?
Yeah, of course.
I was so motherfucking mad. I was so, not even motherfucking, I was so motherfucking mad, right? No other, just motherfucking mad, because I was like, that's a UGK record. Like, it's you made the beat, it's a UGK beat, you singing the hook. I'm like, that's a UGK record, and y'all didn't put me on the motherfucker. I was really more jealous than anything. And so I told him, I instituted a veto at that point, where before he sold a beat to somebody, I had the right to listen to it and decide whether or not we should keep it or not. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't about stunting his growth or not letting him make money. I just didn't want everybody else to get all the dopest shit. Little did I know, I had no idea how much dope shit he had in him at the time. And we were never at a shortage for dope-ass music.
Certainly. So after putting out these EPs on Big Time,
Yes.
you end up signing the deal with Jive, which I understand KRS-One fills you in person immediately after putting the ink on the paper that this is maybe not the best decision that you've made. Was that deal, in your estimation, particularly onerous, or was it just sort of the bad in the way that most new artist record deals are bad?
I've heard a lot of horror stories about deals, right? But typically that's about recoupment, right? Like, that's about stealing publishing, that's about percentage, and really about money. The most fucked up thing in the UGK contract was there was a death/jail clause in my contract, which stated that if one of us died or if one of us went to jail, that we could replace that member, but at a lower percentage rate. And I was actually asked if I wanted to exercise this clause when Pimp C went to jail.
And this was put in there by the Jive lawyers or by
Yes,
your
this
lawyers?
was in the original contract I signed in 1992. A death clause. And I could replace my dead friend, but at a lower rate. So yeah, that was the kind of thing. And obviously we had fucked up recoupment and all of that. And there were amendments in this contract that we signed in 1992 that we didn't fully fix until Pimp came home from prison in like 2005.
I'm curious because now, because of all the analytics, new artists are able to get much more artist-friendly deals. You guys went into your deal, in the sort of fairly unusual in that time situation of having sold some records independently. Did that not afford you a certain amount of leverage in the negotiation?
Well, the problem is that, so this is what happened with UGK. We released the same week as Criss Cross released. Criss Cross had the #1 record in the world. And we were outselling them in mom and pop stores and through wholesalers in Houston, from Houston to Lafayette. And so this became a big thing where everybody wanted to know who this group was. And so The number on the back of the cassette was the number to the record store that the guy that owned the record company, he owned the record store, and I actually worked in the record store. So then one day we get a call, and it's from like Warlock Records, right? You people probably have never heard of Warlock Records. Jungle Brothers, very small. I don't think many people here know who the Jungle Brothers is. No disrespect. You just had to be old as shit to know what we're talking about right now. And then it became like Select Records, and it been all of these different record companies, all the way up to Def Jam, and every single record company called us within that week. And then we're just like, damn, this is dope. Everybody want to fuck with us. And then Saturday, nobody calls, right? The phone does not ring all day Saturday. And then Sunday, nobody calls. And we started thinking we overplayed our hands. Like we should have entertained some of this shit. We got scared. We thought we fucked up because we had never been in this situation before. So we were like, whoever called Monday, whoever called